for a while there, I thought the homelessness rally itself was homeless. But it seems to have come together pretty good there now. Thank you, Stephen, and to the organizers of today's rally. It's an honor to be here to discuss one of the most pressing issues in our community and our province. We have to stand up now and admit that we have a serious homelessness issue in our province. Saskatchewan is riding a wave of unparalleled economic prosperity. Ironically, sadly, good times bring with them a greater gap between rich and poor. This would come as no surprise to Saskatchewan residents who took even a cursory glance at what happened to our western neighbors in Alberta and British Columbia. Look no further than Calgary, Edmonton, or Vancouver. When we go from having the most affordable housing in Canada to having unaffordable housing in just 3 years, as has happened here, the consequences are dire. We must plan and we must act. This is not a political or partisan issue, one that can be shuffled around between parties or among municipal, provincial, and federal levels of government. It's about deciding what kind of community we want to live in. It's about deciding what's worth fighting for. I call on you now to take the lead and demand that others follow. Create new affordable housing units and recognize homeless as something we simply will not tolerate in a province as rich as ours. As I was saying, with such drastic changes in housing affordability come drastic consequences for the poor and working poor. For instance, here in Regina, close to 3,000 individuals had no option but to sleep in Regina's homeless shelters in 2009. Every night, an estimated 345 individuals slept in emergency, transitional, or supportive shelters, with that number swelling closer to 530 in winter months. Keep in mind, these figures do not include the large number of people who, at any given time, are sleeping in parks, doorways, stairwells, tents and trailers, garages, or unsanitary, overcrowded conditions. How long will we tolerate grandmothers sleeping in tents for over 11 months? Shame! We need to help break people out of the cycle of homelessness and prevent them from ever entering in the first place. Shelters are a band-aid solution. Increasingly, the emergency shelter model is being challenged as a costly, demoralizing, and counterproductive approach. Why, in a country and a province as rich as ours, must someone earn a basic right such as stable lodging? How did our present system come to privilege the permanent temporary shelter approach, which, short of no response at all, is not just the least humane and least cost-effective policy, but actually so intrinsically disjointed in its delivery, it might have been devised specifically to waste resources and cause needless suffering. A chronically homeless person can cost the system upwards of $100 grand a year in shelter, emergency response, health, policing, and other services, and be no further ahead in the end. Newer models like the award-winning Streets to Homes Housing First model in Toronto begin with the premise that everyone has a right to a space they can call home. Under such a program, those in need are placed in apartments right from the start. From this position of stability, they receive follow-up supports which may include physical health, mental health, addiction services, and employment training and counseling as required. Political systems that tolerate or ignore homelessness and prisons as de facto homeless shelters cannot be permitted to continue. We want action! Unfortunately, longer-term responses such as Housing First and early literacy programs do not fit well within political mandates that run on 3 to 5 year terms. Moreover, such programs focus on the disadvantaged, yet the privileged have much to do as well. Their task is to imagine the kind of community they wish to pass on to their children and grandchildren, and decide if they want to make the choices and begin the uncomfortable and difficult work required to put an end to the systemic poverty, racism, and oppression that too often characterize our city, our province, and our country. It should be a matter of public policy that no one ever gets released into homelessness, whether leaving health, corrections, social services, or any other such agency. That we have homeless in a province as rich in resources as Saskatchewan and in a country as deep in administrative capacity as Canada ought to be a matter for urgent inquiry and speedy remedy. Clearly, the crisis arises not from material scarcity, but rather from ineffective planning, inflexible organizational structures, and the absence of public and political will. It should not be an insurmountable task to convince our government officials, are you listening? To convince our government officials that failing to respond to homelessness carries a far greater price over the long term than the cost of positive intervention over the short and medium terms. For remember, banks may fail, and once proud industries beg at the public purse, investments made in people's lives, on the other hand, are the only sure method to see a return in the future, and their true dividend is beyond calculation. End homelessness now!
Thank you. The next speaker, Stacey Keston, researcher with the Provincial Association